Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be on 5 mistakes that young photographers make. Now this isn't something that all young photographers do, this is just something that I've noticed a lot in the last few years in particular, and it's things that I have done myself when I was first starting out. So I am speaking from experience, and I know other people that have felt the same way when starting out with photography. So let's get into it. Now the first mistake is that a lot of young photographers think it's all about the gear. When you're first becoming a freelance photographer, it's not all about the gear. With any genre of photography, it's never always going to be all about the gear. I've said this in previous videos, you don't need the most expensive kit, you don't need the most expensive camera to produce great images. You just really need to experiment with your own work and to use what you have. It's just really important to do that because I think so many people get caught up with needing the newest updated lens or the most updated camera, and really when it boils down to it, it's just the technology, it's just the tool that you're using for these images, but it's not the main way that you're going to get amazing images. You just need to experiment, you need to try out new things, and to build your portfolio using what you have. That's really important. I think the Digital Rev cheap camera series is the perfect example of this. So many photographers taking amazing shots using $20 cameras. I mean, that's the perfect example, and I think people shouldn't get too caught up with using the best gear. Now the second point is that they compare themselves to other photographers, and this is something that I still tend to do even to this day, and you don't even have to be a young photographer to make this mistake, but it's just not a good idea to do it. I mean, it's not helping anyone, it's not helping you, it's not helping them. It's just feeling this jealous anxiety that you're never going to be as good as them, you're not going to reach their level, and it's just not doing anything for yourself. If you keep thinking like that, then you probably will never get to that point where you're developing your work and you're going to be happy with your progress. I think that's the main thing, is to always look at your own progress and to see how far you've always come. I think it's hard when you're younger and you're just starting off and you want to have this photography business, but you're comparing yourself to all these other great photographers who are so successful. Use them as role models, use them as your idols, because that's always going to make you push harder with your own photography and your own work and your own business. So that's always a good way to look at it. Don't compare your work, because there is no comparison. They've started at a totally different time to you and you're just in that beginning stage. I feel like the beginning stages are so much about creativity as well. And for me, I feel like the time that I was most creative with my work was when I first started out. I had the most ideas, I had the most concepts, and I actually think they were pretty good concepts now that I look back on them, and I don't tend to come up with those types of ideas anymore, I feel. So I think that's such a great time to start developing and experimenting with your work and not comparing yourself to others, because as soon as you start experimenting and building your own portfolio, you'll realize that you're making progress, and that's all that matters. Number 3 is that a lot of young photographers will use too much flash, and I think it's particularly too much in outdoor photography. So I don't think you need a flash all the time. Hey, if it's your style and you like to use it, you do what you want. I think sometimes it can be overused, especially in outdoor light when it's just the most beautiful light. Natural light is, I think, my favorite light to use because it is so versatile and you can get the most beautiful images just by using natural light. And sometimes I see flash on camera in the middle of the day and it's just in a person's face, and it can blow out the highlights. It just sometimes doesn't do anything for the photo. It doesn't give you that really natural effect. There is definitely ways to use flash where you can bounce it off walls, you can diffuse it and make it seem more natural, but I think just like a full-on flash in the face middle of the day is not always the way to go. So I'd say like experiment with using natural light only, or using reflectors, using fill flash, like more of a diffused flash if possible, and trying out new things that way instead of just using an on-camera flash. Point number 4 is down to over editing. Now this is something I'm definitely guilty of. I've done it before. I think every photographer has at one point. And especially when you're younger, you're so keen to experiment with so much different stuff going on in Photoshop as well, and skin editing and toning, like color toning everything, and just editing every little part of the image. It's just so exciting to be able to do that. And it's very, very easy to get carried away with doing this. So I'd say, and I've said this in videos before, but it's always good to, when you're editing, make sure you're having regular breaks, because I think having breaks will get you back to the screen and you'll have fresh eyes and you'll see where things have been over edited or pushed too far. Sometimes when you've spent 3 hours editing a photo and you don't come back to it until later, you've realized you've edited the whole photo and it's too far gone, or and sometimes you don't realize until later. So I think make sure that you're refining your work as well at times, and less is more when it comes to editing. Number 5 is definitely about the business side of things with being a freelance photographer. And it's the misconception that it is all about taking photos. It's just about taking photos. And unfortunately, as much as I'd like to say yes, it is just about taking photos, it's not. There's a lot more things that go on with being a freelance photographer than just picking up your camera and taking photos. Definitely a very important part of it, and don't get me wrong, developing your portfolio is one of the most important things you can do as a freelance photographer, but there's also a lot of other things to consider with your business. You're pretty much like a one-man or one-woman show. You have to do the marketing, you have to do the financials, you have to do the legal side of things with contracts. It's not just about photography, unfortunately. There's a lot of other things to consider. So I would consider that even when if you're looking at studying and considering that, maybe look at studying marketing, or maybe look at studying a bit more about social media and SEO, because that's also really important when it comes to your business and selling yourself. So there's a lot of other things to look at and to learn about, and just keep that in mind when you are first starting off your business with freelance photography. There's just so much that you have to do yourself. It's not just, you're not just a photographer, you're all of those other things. Thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I hope this was a bit interesting for you and you learned a few points. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, please subscribe. I've got all my social media accounts and my gear that I use down in the description box below, so feel free to check those out, and I will see you next time. Bye!